Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with a Star Wars Destiny video. And today I want to do a preliminary review of the game. Now, I know it's really early. The game isn't even out yet. But I've had a chance to play about 5 games on the tabletop simulator. 4 with a starter deck, 1 with some terrible deck that I built myself, but it was a lot of fun. And so I thought I would give you my thoughts on the game thus far. So, overall, I think the game is really good. So let me talk about what I'm enjoying so much of the game. First of all, the main thing, the best thing about the whole game, in my opinion, is the back and forth actions. You just are always engaged in the game. In fact, I played with someone on the simulator. I took an action, and I kind of waited a minute, and I was like, it's your action. He's like, I had tabbed out, and I was doing something else. You cannot tab out when you're playing this game. I realize if you're playing most other Fantasy Flight card games, you can sort of, they do their turn, you do your turn. Not this game. Star Wars Destiny is an all-in engagement. You have to watch every single detail they do. If you miss something small, you could be in big trouble. And I really, really like that. Not only do I like that, I play games with my very young daughter, and it's going to be great to keep her engaged in the game. The thing that drives her the craziest about card games is, Daddy, is it my turn yet? Yes, honey. It's pretty much always your turn in Star Wars Destiny. So I really, really like that. I cannot overemphasize that enough. The back and forth element is just amazing. All right. The next part of the game that I like the most is the starting characters / starting battlefield plus a very generous mulligan system. What this equates to is a lot of consistency in your early turns and early game plan. What I mean by this is, unlike a lot of card games where, let's say, you have a 60 card deck or a 50 card deck, you oftentimes will have to build into it a number of different game plans because you may not draw the card you need. If you build a whole deck around a card and you don't see it, you generally will lose. So what I like so much about this game is that you have a starting game plan that you have sitting on the table. And not only that, your opponent does as well. And so right from the start, everyone puts down their cards and you start looking and you're like, okay, I can kind of make out your game plan, I think. I have a game plan. It's already being enacted. I'm going to draw up. I'm going to hard mulligan for the 1 or 2 of the cards that I really want to start the game. And boom, let's get this game started in a way in which we're already able to actually do our game plans. Now, I think the reason they're able to do this is because it's offset a bit by the dice, right? If you have a game plan that is far too specific and it's highly reliant on one side of the die, then yes, you get a jump start in that game plan, but you still have a lot of variability in can you actually enact your game plan. So I really like the fact that there's a ton of consistency at the start of the game. Something else that's been great just so far, remember, we've only seen like a little less than half the cards with all the spoilers that are floating around. There is a ton of deck variability. There are late game decks, there's aggro decks, there's mill decks, there's shield decks, and there's going to be all kinds of decks in between. I really like that. I'm very impressed that out of the box, out of the starter set, it seems like there's going to be a ton of different deck variability. Now, I may be wrong, right? It may come out that we decide like, okay, this combination of characters is just the most efficient, right? Yes, there are all these different types of decks you can build, but this one is the best. Now, we're nowhere near making any claims like that since the cards aren't even all out. But it is something to keep in mind that this may change. But there is actually a lot of possibility to be able to do this, to be able to have this variability. Okay. Now, the biggest concern for me going in was simply this. Would the dice determine too many games, right? Would the game be maybe fun, but there would just be too many games where you're like, okay, I really need damage or I lose. Oh, no damage, I crapped out. And what I found is that so far that has not been the case. In my 5 games, I've only had 2 games that came down to a final turn where it was pretty close, and if one person rolled a lot of damage, it would be kind of a problem. I had a TIE fighter out, and I, boom, rolled the 3 range side on it, and I had a Finn, I think I had a Stormtrooper, and I rolled his 2 damage, and so that pretty much won the game. But even that, my opponent could have very well had a card that just stripped those dice away, right? I went first, I rolled my die, it looks like I win, and then he just pays the 2 resources and pulls off the dice, and suddenly it wouldn't have mattered. He didn't have the cards, it was the starter deck, so there's not as many options, but it definitely felt like that roll pretty much won the game. But other than that, it didn't feel like that was the case. It felt like I had a lot of control over my turns, especially having the 2 resources at the beginning of each turn really helps fix this. So the biggest worry I had going in was that first turn. Like if I mulligan for resources, or sorry, upgrades where I need resources, and then I don't roll any resources, I'm kind of screwed. But at least I get to play one of these upgrades, right? So it is a bit of a risk then that you're taking. If you mulligan for 4 upgrades because you want to jump them all down and you don't roll resources, well, that was a risk you took, right? Maybe it wasn't a great idea to just try to get all of your upgrade cards in that opening hand. So I feel like there's a lot of risk management. You really have to be flexible, and as long as you are making flexible plans that aren't completely wrecked by one roll of the die, I think you're going to feel very much in control of your turns, especially since you can re-roll your dice, you can turn them to specific sides. There's a lot of mechanics in the game that allow you to spend various resources to change and fix dice rolls. I really like that. And then one other thing to keep in mind is that, yeah, there will be those games where it comes down to a die roll, you get it or you don't, but you know what? The same thing happens in card games with top decking. There are so many card games, so many instances when you get at the end of the game and you're like, come on, I just need a character, or I just need a damage spell. I didn't draw it, and then I lose. So to say that a game comes down to the roll of the die at the end and you miss sometimes, that's the variability of this type of game, and that's fine. The question and issue I had was, would this be the norm, right? Would it be too often I felt out of control, that the dice and the rolls were beyond my control? And I really haven't felt that way, and that to me is incredibly important. Variance should be in these kind of games, but it needs to be mitigated, it needs to be controlled, it needs to be fun variance, and I've really felt, at least thus far, that has been the case. Another less important issue for me is that this feels like a Star Wars game. Like, the cards feel very Star Wars-y, the way they work. You have Obi-Wan, he's an upgrade, he's pretty expensive, he does cool stuff, and then when he dies, he doesn't go away, he becomes a support. You have a lot of other cards like this that seem to be acting and behaving like Star Wars cards. Like I said, it's not a huge deal for me, but a good example for me is the Star Wars LCG. When that game came out, I played it a lot, but it didn't really feel like a Star Wars game to me. It felt like it could easily be a World War II game or something. It was just had a Star Wars skin on it. And I just feel like Destiny, it just kind of rings true to Star Wars. And you may not feel the same way, but in the games I've played, it just really does feel like that, which is great. And then the last thing is, it's been fun. I realize this is a really subjective claim, but I've actually enjoyed the game a lot. And more importantly, I've won many games. Well, I've only played 5, so I think I've lost 3 and won 2, and I enjoyed all 3 of the games I've lost. Now, if you know me very well, which you may not, I don't really enjoy games I lose at all that much. Generally speaking, if I'm losing at a game, I'm thinking like, I really don't. There's something I don't like about this game, right? And it may just be me losing. But what's been great about Destiny is it just feels fun even when losing, and that's without even actually getting to roll the dice myself. I'm on a simulator, which takes away a lot of the fun of having dice in the game, you know, feeling them, rolling them, watching them come out. Oh no. So I have a feeling that this game is going to be really fun. One other thing that I very much like about the game is it seems like it can be played at different levels, right? Like, as an experienced, long-term, competitive, high-level card player, I see all kinds of small details and tricks I can do to elevate my play and to give me an advantage over an opponent. But I also see how my 7-year-old daughter will be able to just roll the dice, see the results, and say, all right, Finn has 2 damage showing. I'll shoot your Rey for 2. Boom! Done! And I think it's really important to have a game where it has these different levels where people can play it at, you just break it out at a party, play for fun, and then also be able to have a really high level competitive scene where people are really taking advantage of the small details and their deep knowledge and understanding of the game to gain that competitive edge. So in short, this is a very positive review of Star Wars Destiny. Again, it's a preliminary review, but I'm going into it with a really positive attitude, thinking that this is going to be a great game, especially for me, as one who is both a high-level competitive card game player and as one who is always on the hunt for games to play with my family. It's this great game that might actually satisfy both needs. Wouldn't that be amazing? I don't think I have a single game in my house that I can say that about. So I'm looking forward to November. Hopefully you are. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've had a chance to play the game, what have your thoughts been so far? I'm really excited, and I'll see you in November with some more Star Wars Destiny content.